up until about a year and a half ago, I started getting a little complacent, a little lazy. Like the why wasn't there anymore, you know? So you came up with this idea of FitBet. And I was like, all right, cool. People bet to see, you know, how if they will actually complete it. It's almost like a discipline thing. Will you hit these marks, right? So it's nothing hard, but it does take discipline. And that's what I was lacking. I mean, I had lost that over the years. So when this came along, I was like, wow, this could be a chance for me to hop back on that train. You know, most people would like to be in shape. Most people would like to start doing those things, but it takes that willpower, right? And I feel like FitBet almost puts a little bit of fire under that willpower because now there's a little bit of cash involved.
We talk about like motivation a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea of like, it's not so much necessarily about the money, right? The idea is consistency, you know? The idea is like people will, you know, go to the gym, right? Mm-hmm. And it'll be like make a decision to like, okay, now I'm going to like start like a routine, right? Mm-hmm. And then they'll go and work out, right? And come home, look in the mirror, see no results, right?
Correct.
And then in one session, right? And then maybe they go back the next day, right? And spend like maybe like 9 hours, right? They come home, look in the mirror, and still no results, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to measure, right, the results. Like even just getting more fit, like improving your health, right? Mm-hmm. You might feel like there's immediate effects and then there's like long-term, right? Mm-hmm. But like the idea too, though, being that that's why people will often quit, right? It's because it's like they have this idea in their head that I can work out or I can do this like so hard or whatever, right? And then they realize, okay, to do that every day is not going to happen, right? So but the idea being that it's not about the intensity, it's about consistency.
But FitBet really, it does. That consistency of knowing like, hey, just a little bit today. You don't have to do everything. Just a little bit. Was so nice. And it was so, in a way, it was just stabilizing. I knew I had something to do every day. I knew that I really didn't have a choice. So it was kind of like, all right, just got to do this anyways. And it led to other better habits. It led to me, waking up earlier. Led to me working out more often, obviously. It's not necessarily about the money, but that was the one first drive. But it also led to me kind of, not to say it, but a little more happy. I have a little more confidence now that I'm getting back into shape. So, it does play a role. And I think that when you mix weird emotions with a weird spot in life sometimes, you get bad feedback, aka out of shape, not caring. And having this thing kind of forces you to care a little bit, you know? And for me, even though I didn't have a lot of cash in the game necessarily, when I was on my couch after work, it was just enough to kind of kick me in the side and say, hey, go do this. Don't lose that money. Go do it. It takes 30 minutes. Go do it, right? So when I started doing FitBet, my first challenge, first couple of days I was super motivated. Third day hit and I had work and I was tired. I worked I think a double that day. And I was like, I'm just going to go to sleep. So I'm laying in my bed. It's about 10:45 and I'm like, nah, I got to go work out. I was like, no. And then I ended up telling myself, you decided to do this. You even put money into it. You want to do this. Go do it now. So it really made me happy when this finally came out. I got to participate. And even though I lost motivation, this kept me motivated. Yeah.
But do you know Dr. Alexis George?
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, so he said something like really perfect. He was saying to like people who like if you're hoping to implement like a routine, like an exercise routine, the idea being don't go to the gym and like and spend all that hours, right? Like right off the bat. Like go and go and do like one thing, right? Just go and come home, right? Like maybe it's like a 10-minute drive. Right? Spend like 10 minutes, like literally, or maybe even just 5 minutes, and then go home. And the idea being there that the first time, right? And then the idea there is that it's like the routine. So now that you felt like you did that, the next day you go, and it's like, okay, well, I'm already here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I see.
And you spend a little bit more time. And then the idea to like tamper, like yourself a little bit, like not to okay, I like now spent 3 hours and like burn yourself out. Like in other words, like don't do that.
You don't have to be the guy who burns the most calories. You don't have to be the biggest or the baddest or lift the most.
Right.
You just got to go do it. Whether it's sitting at a desk, whether it's pacing in your office.
Sure.
I mean, you can find time. Honestly, even at work. I mean, I've been at work a couple of times, and I was like, you know what? Things are slow. I have this moment, I have a lunch break, I have whatever. Instead of wasting this on my phone or wasting this just sitting around, shooting the breeze with people, go for a 30-minute walk.
Sure.
Go do some push-ups.
Yeah, and like imagine the dopamine hit of going to the gym. It feels so good. It feels like you completed something, right?
Flip from how I've seen it before, where it's like, who can burn the most calories?
Mm-hmm.
Can you get the lowest body percentage and fat?
Right.
And I would say for most of the population, that's pretty demoralizing when you see that, because you can see somebody burn 1,000 calories here.
Mm-hmm.
They're sub 8, sub 10% body fat, and you're like, wow, I'm nowhere close to that.
Mm.
And they're like, fitness is not for me. It's not my thing. But you made it to where fitness can be those particular people's thing and other people who are already in shape.
So you were mentioning how with your schedule, and your schedule being quite hectic, right? And so getting the workouts in requires an extra motivation, right? Because so I think the thing is that people come into this at different levels, right? People come into this in different ways, right? So if you have a very busy schedule, right, and you're trying to work in a daily workout or even 4 workouts a week, it requires a lot more motivation than if you have a very lax schedule. So you sleep for 8 hours, you work for 8 hours, and then you have another 8 hours left, right? And it's like if you can't like spend like one of those hours like taking care of your body.
I like that, what you mentioned when you say that. It's really, that's almost the key. If you can section out just a little bit of time, you don't need tons, just a little bit. You build upon that. That's going to build in other places in your life as well, whether it's, like I said, waking up early, making better food choices. That dopamine hit we were talking about earlier, you feel a little bit better.
So there's this idea of like before going or before beginning your routine. So you have all these expectations or like all these great ideas of like what might happen, what might occur, right? And then the idea being like those aren't like instantaneously met, but that idea of that beginner kind of excitement of it, like even that first day, right? You still have that kind of like idea of like, okay, this is like cool. This is like my new thing or something, right?
I feel like the happiest I've been in life is when I was working out the most, in the best shape, and eating correctly. Some of the worst times in my life, and no, I wouldn't say it was because of it, but it led to me eating the bad foods, the skipping workouts, not really having that discipline or that consistency when I probably should have.
Yeah.
You got to get back on.
So you knew what it was like you had in your mind, a vision. Like you knew what it was like to have this consistent kind of routine that like was in a good mental space and worked for you, right? And then went out of it, right? And then FitBet comes along, and it's like, okay, just to get the flame started again, kind of thing, right? Just the idea of getting back in there, just like even the first time, right? And that's really more of like what FitBet is really hopes to provide. It's not there. We got the Vegas like elements, and that's kind of like. It's like we have the bets and the pot, and that's just kind of like how we do it. But what it was really about is that kind of ethos of the consistency, the dedication, the motivation, like inspiration, and then also like kind of explain this idea of like, it's not about being so intense, right? It's about consistency. It's about, staying with it. It works on so many different levels, right? Like, children take vitamins, right? And you're supposed to take, even as adults, it's good to take, you probably maybe do take like supplements or anything like that. Or have you ever had any? Like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So the idea too being is like they do so many good things for you, right? They work on like so many different levels, right? So the idea being there is that, working out is the same kind of exercise, is the same kind of idea. That idea of like I accomplished something. It's like, okay, so I accomplished this like task. It's like, okay, well I can then easily accomplish this much less demanding task, right? And then it's like, okay, all of a sudden it's like you think about like, okay, well if I'm like tearing it up on a treadmill, right? It's like I'm putting a lot of energy into that. It's like all of a sudden, it's like vacuuming is very easy. Right?
It's almost like that domino effect.
Yeah.
But working out and staying consistent, I got complacent and lazy. And then around that year and couple months period, you came in, right? So you came in with FitBet, and you're like, hey guys, we got this going on. You want to try it? And I hopped on the train.